Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for inspired conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I love circling up with women on the path of self-discovery and creating conversations that inspire, empower, and support you in living your best lives. I'm Linda Joy, your host and publisher of the beloved Aspire magazine. You know, one of the things that have really been a healing tool, and many of you have seen the posts I make, is dabbling in creativity. When I was young, I was an avid painter. I sold lots of artwork, and for some reason, adulthood comes and everything else fell to the wayside. And I did not keep up my creativity, the things that I loved, the things that turned me on. And in the last 5 years, I've been like, I need to play. I need to be more creative. And when I saw my special guest today is Susan Hensley, when I saw the name of her book, I was like, girl, we're gonna get you on the show. I've had her write for Aspire, and her book is called Art for Your Sanity. And I just love that title. How art journaling can help you manage chaos and unleash joy. And today we're going to be talking about the power of art journaling as a tool of self-discovery. And that's how I try to use my creativity, is just by listening and going within. So let me tell you a little bit about Susan. She's a transformational coach and author, a speaker, and is dedicated to helping people navigate life's transitions with joy, creativity, and resilience. With decades of experience as a corporate executive and leadership coach, she has a deep understanding of the challenges and opportunities that come with major life changes. Drawing on her extensive background in HR, coaching, and journalism, Susan's mission is to empower people to unlock their inner wisdom, creativity, and sense of play during times of uncertainty and change. Welcome, Susan.
Oh, Linda, thank you for having me. And I love your personal story about how much you loved paint and then life somehow gets in the way and that artistic impulse had fallen away and how you've rediscovered it and how incredibly important it is to nurture it. It's like I was hearing you say that and I was thinking, yes, 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 so true.
And it's so funny because it was a big part of my life. I took private art lessons with an extraordinary teacher from 9 years old to 30, and I sold landscapes, seascapes, and corporations would buy them for their offices. And I haven't picked up a paintbrush, oil paintbrush, in 32 years. And there's a long story behind that, but I said, well, you know what? For whatever reason, I can't pick up an oil painting brush, but maybe I can try new ways of being creative. And one of the ways I love that I've been playing with recently is Zentangle, right? I can get lost in that. But that was a big moment for me to give myself permission. I think that's a big thing maybe it's just the way I'm wired, but give myself permission to play with no focus on it completing a task. Does that speak to what you find a lot of your clients and students struggle with?
Oh, it speaks to it 100%. I was running a workshop last week, actually, and it was about 20 corporate executives, and I was doing about an hour and a half just introduction to the concept, and it was after lunch, and we start with just a 5-minute exercise to really try and get out of that left brain, right? They've been focused, they've been setting goals and strategies, all important and great work. And I did it for a number of years, But to get them to just sort of shift to that right brain, that creative, holistic side, we did just like a 5-minute exercise with some music and just two crayons. And the goal was just to fill a page. It wasn't even a big page. It was like a journal size page, right about 5 by 7, if you think of the typical size of a written journal, but this one was blank. And folks came back from that just 5-minute exercise. And it was so telling because several, although they said they felt free, for the first couple minutes, they felt guilty that they were actually taking any time to just play. And think of this, this is part of their retreat. This was built in by by their leaders. You couldn't have had more permission. And yet the very simple act of you have permission to play, the first resistance was actually guilt. They were busy. It was all women. Their days were loaded with to-dos. And then once they gave themselves that permission, the words that started to come out were free, in the flow. It felt so much longer than just the 5 minutes. And I actually came at art journaling in this book almost the opposite with you. My inner, if you will, inner artist was never developed early on. I got messages that wasn't going to be my strength. I was great at getting things done, right? I managed time really well. I could manage projects. I could manage newsrooms. I could write on deadline. And I was rewarded for that. And it felt great. And it wasn't really until life got overwhelming and some of my tools, my meditation practice, my journaling practice really weren't enough. And I rediscovered creativity. And honestly, it felt like an aha for me. So I think there's something in that rediscovering from whatever point we stopped really using that aspect of our personality. I believe we are all innately born with it and it's in our souls and we want to express and be creative. And somehow that gets silenced. And there's really something so beautiful in just that rediscovery and letting it start with play.
Oh my gosh, it's so speaking to me because one of the reasons I believe, so your story resonates with me. I think that we fall into what I call the masculine energy, right? Because, like you said, we're rewarded for that. Do, push, strive, get results. And then when we look at art, or I'll speak for myself, when I looked at art, when I thought about picking up a paintbrush for oil painting again, what came into my mind, and I'm still working on that, is what if it's not like it used to be, right? Like, what if you
Mm.
can't paint like you did and what you were known for? What if? So I don't frickin' pick up the brush, and I'm still working on that level. But another part of me way back around the time I stopped painting, I was growing another business. I've been an entrepreneur for 32 years. I had just got off welfare and I was growing another business, and I was really in that energy of pushing, chasing, striving, winning all kinds of business awards. And I lost my ability to play, to be honest with you. I was so into the masculine energy of that driven persona that I forgot the softness, the play, the creativity, the connection to my intuition. Does that language resonate for you or also as well as any clients you may have worked with?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Almost gives me chills listening to your description because when we are driving in in the way you describe that masculine energy and getting rewarded for it and creating a living for ourselves and our family, all of which is so important, I think that fear really grows of what will happen if I tap into this other aspect of me. Will I lose my ambition? Will I lose my drive even? I think we get so used to, or at least for me, I'll speak for myself and some of my current clients. You're running on that treadmill and it's going faster and faster and faster. And you start to believe that if you slow down at all, you won't be able to go again. And, God forbid you actually get off of it. You right? Who would you be if you weren't doing that? And my what I'd call accidental tipping into play and creativity again was really one of those moments where when other things aren't working, you become desperate and you find that little spark of joy and you start to follow it, right? I think we all are terrific joy hunters if we allow ourselves to be curious. One of the biggest challenges for me and some of my clients is really to silence, I'll call it that inner art critic, and to come at it from a place of play and almost like a child's play date. Back in the age where we were very comfortable saying to each other, "You're not invited," or you didn't have that sense that you had to invite everyone. It's like inner critic, you are not invited to this 5 or 10 minute play session that I'm going to have with crayons or watercolor or gel pens or a big fat glue stick and collage, right? I think there's real power in keeping it short and keeping your materials when you first start to dip in here, the materials of your childhood before you worried about maybe being wasteful or it being expensive. I really stress in my workshops, in the book, in the online course to start with the tools that you loved to play with as a child, because then you're not telling yourself, oh no, this pack of crayons is so expensive, this glue stick, right? Because they're simply not. And it allows you to play much more freely. And it helps to silence that inner critic. That is one of the biggest hurdles, I think, to trying to tap into play and then creativity and curiosity is to do as much as you can to set the bar really low and just have it be about the process and not an end product. That's why so many of the first exercises are really about making a mess and recognizing how fun it is and freeing it is to make a mess versus to doing something perfectly.
This really speaks to me because that was, as I shared, why I wouldn't pick up the paintbrush. What if I can't do it perfectly? What if um, someone compares? Now, there is no someone. It was the inner critic comparing. I love when we go, what if someone, I'm like, no, Lynn, it's your damn inner critic. It's nobody else out there. You're being your own worst judge. So what I did about maybe 7 years ago, I said, I have never touched watercolor in my life. So there's nothing for me to compare to. So I started playing and um, not for the end result, as you just beautifully shared in different words. It was just to be present. And I've always believed in creativity. Now, one of the things I will say before we take our first break is I don't think it's any accident that I stopped painting as I became an entrepreneur, going to be 33 years. But everyone that knows me in the industry knows that my businesses, my brands are my creative outlet. They bring me joy. So I am still very creative. I'm a creatrix and I do it through birthing projects that are true to my soul. And when I started realizing that, Susan, about 5 years ago, I said, Lan, you never lost your creative edge. You are just using your creativity, intuition, joy, and essence through your businesses. So now I'm starting to go backwards a little bit and play like with Zentangle. Anything that if I'm walking through Michael's craft store and I go, ooh, what is that? It looks fun. I get it. I grab it because I want that openness to joy. So Susan, we're going to continue this conversation. We're going to take a quick break and I'd love your thoughts on that. So we'll be back in a moment, my friends. Please visit Susan at susan-hensley.com susanhensley.com. And of course, grab her book, Art for Your Sanity. We'll be right back.
Inspiration for a Woman's Soul. Aspire Magazine, inspiring and supporting women on the path of self-discovery. Claim your free digital subscription today, which includes access to thousands of dollars of personal development bonus gifts from Team Inspiration partners. Claim your Aspire Magazine subscription today at subscribetoaspire.com.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I am loving this conversation with Susan Hensley, transformational coach, speaker, and author of Art for Your Sanity: How Art Journaling Can Help You Manage Chaos and Unleash Joy. So right before the break, Susan, you mentioned that inner critic and um, how it can run the show when it comes to what we feel is like producing something instead of art and creativity just as a tool for playing. So do you think that's the biggest struggle for those, to give themselves permission to play?
I think that is the initial barrier. Absolutely. And I love the way you described before the break the walking through Michael's. And if you felt that little spark of joy, you'd pick it up and maybe try it. And I think that is the starting point for art journaling as a tool. It is where I inadvertently started because I'd never identified myself as, I'm using air quotes here, as creative. I could appreciate that I was creating in the world and in relationships, but I thought when it came to aesthetics of any kind, that wasn't my strength. And I a friend, a colleague, the story of how this began is a colleague broke her ankle on vacation, of course, and she had to have ankle surgery and was laid up and couldn't do anything. And she took a painting course online and loved it and discovered she had a tremendous amount of talent, actually sold a few paintings. And she was mentioning to some of us, and a few of us were like, oh, I'd love to learn a few techniques. So it was a rainy Saturday. This was years ago, went over to her house and she was trying to teach us some techniques. And I ended up with a couple of oil paints and a piece of paper, and I managed to make brown out of, the typical colors you make brown of, that. And it was a blob, and I felt joy. I was not thinking about proportions because it took me back to that age of finger pointing, of being, if you will, your own, almost your own proud parent or the own lover of your creation for the sake of creation, not for output. And in my coaching practices, I am a big believer in you follow those little joy hits, right? Those little tingles, and you just keep following them and seeing where you go. And I inadvertently started art journaling for myself with just the pure idea of playing. And that's where it started. And then over time, what began to happen is it became a container for difficult emotions I was having. I might turn to my crayons, my watercolor, my oil paints, all once again, very, very inexpensive, nothing fancy. And I would rage on them or cry with color, if you will, with slashes, with lightning bolts, whatever images and symbols I was processing. Then, over time, as this grows, I one day start to flip back in it, dried pages. And dang, if you don't start to see those kernels of wisdom coming from your soul. And you see all of the support you're giving yourself, you see the resilience start to emerge, and then you see messages. And once again, I want to preface this all with I have a strong meditation practice and have for a number of years. I'm a written journaler, huge believer in therapy. So I have all these tools that I have always felt helped me be in touch with me. And it was really the art journal that helped me tap into that deep inner wisdom of my soul in a very different way, a way that was playful and joyful and supportive without a should. It wasn't I need to figure this out, right? I had a hard time because I think of my careers and just if you will, the way I was raised to really always tap into that inner wisdom in a more holistic way. I would be sort of saying, what's the answer? Show me the signs, show me the guidance. And there it was on the pages of my art journal. And that's when I would say that magic started to happen for me.
I love that. I love your sharing of your journey. And for those who are listening who may not even know what art journaling is, give a brief description of what it is.
Sure. In its absolute simplest form, if you picture written journaling, yeah, whatever size page, most are about 5 by 7, and it's got lines. Art journaling, about the same size. You can use any size, let's just say that, but it's blank, and you are just playing for 5 minutes at a time initially, 10 minutes, but you're playing with whatever tools you love. And when I say tools, crayons, gel pens, collage. If anybody's ever done any vision boarding, it's not nearly that intentional, but you may rip out pictures or magazine or images, could be watercolor, oil paint. So it's just a way to say to yourself, much like you would in a written journal, but how am I feeling right now? I'm going to spend 5 minutes just expressing whatever I am feeling or using images that look good on the page. So if you think of the written journal as being your left brain's way to sort and get in touch with emotions, I really think of the art journal as your right brain's way and a more direct path, if you will, to what's laying in your heart or your soul. I'll use that phrase. It is not about what it looks like when it dries. It is not about being right at all. It is about a place of curiosity. It's just that, what am I feeling? What color or colors are appealing? What images? And so you're just sort of open and curious. And then I have found for many people, the practice grows from there.
This is really speaking to me because one of the things I've noticed when I'm a doodler too. Like I love doodling using color, like that. I think they call it neurographic, but
Yeah.
it opens up my intuition, even my business, using my creativity in my business. I am more connected to my intuition in the last, I'd say 2.5 decades, and it's just accelerating because I take time to play. Now, I may not be art journaling yet. You've inspired me. Your book inspired me, so I'm excited to pick up one of those sketchbooks. But I noticed that when I give myself time to play, whether it's doodling, Zentangle, playing with my markers, I love doing that too. Sometimes when I'm struggling with something, all of a sudden, when I'm not even thinking about it, when I'm doodling, the answer goes, here you are. And I'm like, "Oh, you were there all along. I just had to get out of my own way to listen." Have you found that too? The intuitive opening and the answers we seek are right there when we're not trying to control life, push life.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that is sort of the beauty of it is when you give up that, rather it's conscious or subconscious desire to control, and you're just playing, rather it's doodling. Many times we use an exercise where you're just drawing a circle, if you will, just filling a page with color with a circle. And what does come up, and it's because yes, you're not forcing the issue, you're not in that loop. I think it's very similar to what people say the ahas they get in the shower, right? Shower sensory experience, water's pouring over you, you've got the sense of the soaps or the shampoo, And, it's almost a cliche, but the answer pops out. I have absolutely found that with art journaling, and art journaling at its most basic form can be doodling for 5 or 10 minutes, right? Early in my online course and in the workshop, we do an exercise of what was it as a kid when you first sort of started to doodle that you loved to do? Do that for just 5 minutes, right? And people do, they have some are geometric shapes. I'm not sure what you do now, given given the amount of artistic skill you have. But some people are drawing like cats, bunnies, trees, flowers, right? All sorts of things, houses. And it's just sort of going back to that association where we deeply trusted our inner knowing and weren't maybe overthinking.
Mm, I know a lot of people are already writing their list for Michael's or their local craft store to start diving into art journaling because the way you describe it from the, I don't know, I'll call it the highest vision of ourselves. It's like
Mhm.
really connecting with that aspect of ourselves. It's a powerful tool. And this show we actually named art journaling as a tool for self-discovery because everything you're sharing is just reiterating that message. So before we go for our next break, when we come back, I'd love to talk about some of the common misconceptions about creativity that you talk about in your book because I have my sister is 2 years younger. Um, I say this with love. It's a joke with us. Mucky Muck for 35 years at her company, and for years she was in comparison. And so since we were children, she goes, "I'm not creative. You're the creative one." I said, I used to say, "Kim, that's not true. That's not true." About 6 years ago, Susan, I challenged her to try, and she took one of those paint classes that you go have paint and wine.
Yep, those are
She
terrific.
Yeah, she became a creativity queen, painting, drawing, and this is a woman who for 50 years had the story that she's not creative. I am so damn proud of her, and, she's plays with crafts now, everything that she rejected in herself because of comparison, because of, "I didn't get that creativity gene," is what she used to say. And so, let's talk about that when we come back from our break. We'll be right back, my friends. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. Please visit Susan at susan-hensley.com. We'll be back in a moment.
Within you is the ability to consciously choose your thoughts and decisions. Making conscious choice transforms everything from your day-to-day experiences to the direction your life takes and the achievement of your dream life. Conscious Choices coach Mary McGuirk empowers and teaches her clients how to make conscious choices to align their thoughts, beliefs, and actions with the dreams and vision they hold for their life. As a master law of attraction coach and desire factor coach, Mary's unique methodology empowering the use of storytelling and her supportive, non-judgmental coaching style supports clients to understand where their predominant vibration is and how they can consciously choose, moment by moment, to create the outcomes they desire. Just beyond your everyday experiences, your heartfelt desires are calling you to life. Learn more at lifejustbeyond.com.
You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm so glad you're circling up with me and Susan Hensley today. We're talking about creativity, art journaling, how creativity can be a powerful tool for self-discovery. So, Susan, what are some of the common misconceptions about creativity that they can learn about in your book?
Well, first of all, I love your story about your sister and the being in comparison because I think many of us have been in her shoes. If we think of our families of origin or in a early friend group, in a class when we were in grade school, somewhere there was a message that someone else was better at you than this. And then you got nudged into a different direction. And I think people come at art journaling or at this concept with the deep story of they are not creative. What I try and do in the book, because I had that story, and similar to what you shared about your sister, it was much later in life than I found I can create, and I can think what I create is beautiful because I am creating for the joy of creating, not for the end product. It is simply for the act of creating and anchoring to this being about play and not perfectionism and not comparison, because those are, those dual evil twins most of us have sitting somewhere in our head. And it's getting really aware of that self-talk of someone else is doing this better than I am, or I can't be like them, or it needs to be perfect. And if I've made a mistake, I have to start over. And what we work really hard on in the book, in my workshops, on the online course is quieting those voices and taking ourselves to the process, and that creativity is all process and not product, and that it is purely about self exploration, self expression, and not about perfection. And you have to keep telling yourself that. It almost has to be a mantra. Early on in both workshops and the online course, we really talk about what you need for this is curiosity and that self-compassion. Because as much as we don't want those inner critics and comparison and the voices that have told us or that we've come to believe that we are not creative, it is working through that. And that's been developed over a number of years. And it really takes a while to let that go, which is why we're really trying to work with if you need a goal, right? It was so funny. It's about process, not the end state. The goal is almost to make a mess and to play. So if you have made a mess, you have succeeded, for people who need to come at it like that, right? That the goal almost becomes a mess. And then the next exercise is loving your mess. How do you look at it and feel love and compassion for your creation, and really starting to build your creativity muscle through curiosity and self-compassion? And if you think of this, so much of your work and the work you bring forward into the world is infused with inquiry and then compassion and self-compassion, and tapping into those aspects of it. And art is a way to really bring that forward. I had never intended to write a book, certainly not a book with filled with personal essays and anecdotes. And believe me, I never ever intended to publish any aspect of my art journal. And the reason, it's funny how life takes you there if you're following your heart and your soul. The reason I did was to show that it isn't about the end product, right? It is about having fun or creating a safe container to really get under emotions in a more effective and quicker way sometimes than having to process them all verbally. You can almost feel them through your body and express them through color and shapes and image.
Yeah, it's just like, it's almost like as you were speaking, I'm always talking about soul with my clients. It's almost like getting out of your own way, like the ego mind, and letting source flow through your hand onto the page. It's like just being present with your source and allowing everything to come through. Like that's what I was just feeling as you were speaking. It's like, let's get out of our own way, especially that little inner critic. So does that speak to how it feels like for you? Because that's what it feels like for me when I finally create the space to play and draw. It's almost like it's time to listen, and that's my source. What's your experience with that?
It, it's exactly the same. And it took me a while to believe that, right? Initially, it was like, oh, it's this or it's that. But no, that is the power of it, and that it is source, and it is allowing me to get out of my way in a manner that taps into, I would say, our primal need for joy and for play. And so I find it happens much quicker, right? There's the more you practice it, right, the quicker it happens. It's almost, I keep using the analogy, it's a bit like building a muscle or learning something. You're initially unlearning all of the the images and messages you had about your creativity or what something needed to look like at the end. But as you get used to creating for the sake of creating, and then really listening to the images, the colors, stopping and observing what you're creating and what that says uniquely to you, that is what I call that aha, or the magic that I believe with every fiber of my being. That is my soul talking to me, and it's a faster, more joyful path to tapping into that wisdom. And the subtitle of the book uh, is really a way to unleash joy, right? We said it's a way to manage chaos, and those are all those conflicting feelings that we may turn to our art journal to work through. But then when you get to your soul, there is that inherent joy or truth within it that you're able to tap into, and you know it when you get there.
Yeah, that's what it feels like for me. And even when I was speaking earlier about my business, my creativity flows into my business as a lot of entrepreneurs. I work with a lot of what I call spiritual, conscious women entrepreneurs in the personal spiritual development realm. And they'll go, how the hell do you create so much content and 5 brands and still take 12 weeks off a year, have every Friday off? And I said, because one, I'm intentional, but two, it's my creativity and I trust what I'm receiving. And what you just shared is it may take a while to build that relationship of knowing that it is your source. That's where I'm at now, is I have no doubt it's my source. So when I receive input or guidance when I'm working on a project, and I just trust it implicitly and take action, and that's why things are moving as fast as they have for the last 10 years. So I think that was, you beautifully described the process. And one of the things I want to talk about, because you do talk about like managing chaos and life's transitions. Before we go to the next break, I want to talk about how does it help with life transitions? How did you use art journaling with life transitions?
Sure. For me, the first transition it really helped with was recognizing I was ready to change careers. And it was through images of winding paths. I had told myself a story, right? The stories we tell ourselves, that I couldn't stop being this executive in this corporation till I knew what I would do next.
Oh, yeah.
And that was an extremely unhelpful story. And I would believe people when they would say, "You have so much energy, you will go crazy if you don't know what to do." And I knew that wasn't true, but yet I was scared. And in the about 2 years it took me to get up the courage to make that change. I was art journaling, and image after image of winding path of rivers who double back. If you've looked at aerial photos of a river, we all think of rivers as going straight. Rivers don't go straight at all. They double back, they curve. It's amazing the path they take. And I started to recognize those images, and it gave me this sense of peace, that this is a winding path. This isn't a destination. Then I'm starting to find image after image. I don't even have that many magazines as magazines were fading out, but somehow I have images of people standing on cliffs, looking out over
Yeah.
ocean, image after image of that. And as I'm creating these pages and inadvertently finding these images, and sometimes I would find an image that wasn't the right time to use it, and I would set it aside. Like wherever I would find an image of a woman at peace, I did not use that image. And those that was aspirational, but it wasn't where I was, right? I was on this winding path. And the more I reflected, the more confidence, if you will, it gave me that it is not clear and that it does feel like I'm going to need to take the a jump. Then of course, images of jumping. I mean, it's almost I laugh because it sounds so silly when I'm saying it to you that
No, that
it
that was my experience. That
yeah,
image of a woman with her arms back at the edge of a cliff with the abyss below her, it was peaceful and freeing. It was the same vision that I kept seeing when I was making my decision. So as you're speaking, I'm like, she got it too.
yeah.
Um, we
I mean,
well, we gotta take our final break. Let me jump because I get so excited. I'm like, oh no, I missed the break point. So we're gonna come back, my friends. I promise you. I am with Susan Hensley, author of Art for Your Sanity. We'll come back for the last 10 minutes. We'll be right back.
Blending science and intuition, functional nutritionist and board certified holistic nutrition and healthy gut specialist Mary Beth Gadavich supports women to get to the root of their health issues, their gut. Mary Beth is committed to supporting women to enhance their mind, body, and spirit connection, soothe their gut, and reclaim optimal health through intuitive guidance, bio-individual nutrition, and lifestyle plans, as well as chakra work, energy clearing, and meditation. She often supports women with autoimmune disease, digestive issues, chronic fatigue, and food sensitivities. Mary Beth is the founder of Bella Nutrition Services and is also a certified nutrition therapy practitioner, master nutrition therapist, functional nutrition lifestyle practitioner, and certified gluten practitioner. Learn more at bellanutritionservices.com.
You're listening to Inspired Conversation. I'm here today with Susan Hensley. And Susan, right before the break, you were describing how you used it for that major life transition of leaving your steady career, what you were known as and for, and trusting in that image that you shared. Um, that was your soul speaking. Mine, I kept hearing the message with that same image of take a leap of faith, Lynn. Take a leap of faith, Lynn. And I kept going, no, 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 it's too scary to jump without knowing what's down there. Is that what you were feeling too when you saw those images? Like, was you getting the message, take a leap of faith, or did another message come through for you?
no, over and over again, it
Yeah.
was take a leap of faith. The reassurance are I believe our souls are giving us through art journaling. Uh, it continues to give me that feeling of, if you will, alignment and of a deep reassurance. Sometimes there can be what I call like inch deep reassurance, like it'll be okay, that little
Yeah.
more nervous voice. The images that are coming through, and I love your image of, standing there, sort of, if you will, wings back, hair back, not being able to see what's below, but knowing, if you will, that you will be cared for. That's what I've gotten. And it's been interesting over the years as images have evolved. Sometimes I've had doors. I wrote the book, and because the book was so personal and my own art images were in it, which of course to me, I know exactly how I was feeling when I created these, but there's some very intense ones in there for me, and I was afraid to put it out in the world. I'd written it, it was ready to go, it's beautiful, and that's not me saying it myself. The people who helped me publish it in terms of color, it's
Yeah.
beautiful. So complimenting them, and all of a sudden, my art journaling is filling up with doors. How were there even so many pictures of doors, colored doors, and eventually there's starting to be open doors with beautiful yellow labs sitting there. And yellow lab is we've always had labs, and I wrote this book with my beloved yellow lab sitting by my side when I got the idea, and he passed away before the book was published. But all of a sudden, dogs by doors. How am I finding these images? Once again, just a few magazines, and it's sort of that reassurance that feels so jarringly personal to just walk across this welcoming threshold. And yet I think quite honestly, it was like a paint ad that I found, right, with door paint. And yet something that your logical mind wants to poo-poo, I know from my soul and my intuitive mind, I chose those images at this point to help me take that next step forward onto this stage.
Yeah, I have no doubt. I have no doubt, my friend. And it's funny because that was the fear of being seen, right? That fear of putting those darker images in. I think a lot of us can relate is like it's vulnerable. And like I shared with you prior, I've published over 300 women, and a lot of them come to that point of who am I to write this story? Who am I to share? So some of what you were sharing about the trepidation about putting your deepest thoughts and artwork out there, I can relate to. Now, we have a few more minutes. I want to talk about something because you have a beautiful course also, right? Digital course called Artful Transitions. I would invite you in the last few moments to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, what I thank you. And I also want to thank you because, Aspire Magazine has been such a terrific early supporter in what you've done for women because it is scary to put your real self out there and to let people, in essence, see who you are in your struggle. So I just want to take a moment because you had brought that up and really thank you for all you've done, you know, not only for me personally, but for so many of us, because that struggle is real. So Artful Transitions, the book as I was writing it, just almost naturally transitioned to a course. And although I teach in person, I teach at corporate retreats and I teach at wellness spas. Um, I realized the desire to reach more people was going to be through online. And really, in the course, Artful Transitions, try to walk people through the process, right? The starting with play, the working on the I'm not creative myth, to creating the safe container for your emotions and how to work with the different images and colors, and then eventually starting to recognize those patterns and our inner wisdom that comes through, because it really is a bit of a process. And in order to tap into that deeper inner knowing, I think most people need to start with the play and the working to bust some of the myths we may be bringing to the page about our own creativity.
I'll tell you, I visited your webpage and I mean, you get so much. It's like 6 comprehensive modules, 30 engaging video lessons, workbooks, bonus modules, and I was peeking at your and all the descriptions. It's such a beautiful journey back to ourselves using creativity and art journaling as a tool. So you did a beautiful job, my friend.
Oh, thank you. That means so, so much coming from you with all you've created and all
Oh,
you've
I'm
done.
actually I actually went and opened the pages you were speaking to go, "Ooh, what is this?" So, yeah, I'm checking it out, and I'll tell you, you went really deep, and ladies, I gotta tell you, the investment, you will be like, "What? How is she doing this?" Is well under $100, well under. So be sure to visit Susan at susan-hensley.com and check out everything she is doing. Up in the nav bar, you will see Artful Transitions. And that's the course we were just talking about. And of course, you can grab her book, check out everything else she is up to in this world. And Susan, I have no doubt we're going to stay connected. And I look forward to introducing you to this audience as well as the Aspire Mag audience. as I shared offline, I believe this, um, all of us tapping into our creativity and connecting with our source and learning to trust ourselves more than the voice of the inner critic within, um, is key more than ever right now. We need this. So thank you for trusting yourself to put this book out into the world, no matter how scary it felt at the time. So thank
Oh,
you, my friend.
well, thank you, and thank you for allowing me to share this with your audience and for being so embracing and supportive. It's been a pure pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome. And as my audience knows, I love, love, love bringing messengers like you to my audience because I believe that every woman has a message to share. We just all share it in different ways. And many years ago, when the divine blessed me with a large media platform right away, I remember asking, that was like 15 years ago, Aspire's now 18. I remember saying, oh my goodness, why are you doing this? And I heard, use it for good. And so everything I put out through all my media brands is to inspire, empower, and support women on the path of self-discovery. And that's been my one mission since 2006, no matter what the brand is. It's one mission, many brands, but um, thank you for letting me shine a spotlight on your sacred work.
Oh, thank you. My honor.
And until next time, my friends, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness. Blessings, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.